I woke up this morning to the sound of my phone vibrating beside me, a typical sign of the world trying to rush in. A text, an email, a notification, each one a small reminder of just how controlled we are. But here's the thing, control isn't as much about what's out there in the world, as it is about what's inside our heads. We've been led to believe that the world around us, society, rules, expectations, defines the boundaries of our lives, but it's not that simple. The truth? The real control is in our minds, in the way we interpret everything around us. It's almost laughable how much time we spend trying to control things we can't possibly influence. Take this morning for example, rushing through the routine, trying to stay on top of everything. We all do it. We assume that if we just do enough, if we just check off every box, we'll be able to find stability. But here's the kicker, the more you try to control everything, the more trapped you become. It's like trying to hold sand in your hand, you can't grip it tightly enough to keep it from slipping away. And the harder you squeeze, the more it falls through your fingers. But we don't stop, do we? We keep trying. We look for control outside, in the people we meet, in the jobs we take, in the circumstances we find ourselves in. If we can just get the right job, the right house, the right partner, then we'll feel safe. Then, we'll feel in control. But deep down, we know it doesn't work. The world outside us is constantly shifting. Control is a myth. The real work is in learning how to navigate life without the illusion that we can ever control it entirely. You're probably thinking, well, what's the alternative? The alternative is not to fight against the flow but to embrace the chaos. It's a hard pill to swallow, I know, but that's the beginning of understanding true freedom, recognizing that the trap of control isn't out there, it's inside us. It's one of those uncomfortable truths that we don't like to admit. We'd much rather pretend that if we just rearrange things outside ourselves, we'll finally feel settled, balanced, in control. But control doesn't exist in the world around us. It exists in how we respond to it. How we process life's unpredictability. It's all about the mind. And once you understand that, things start to shift. I used to think control was all about planning, mapping out every little detail so I could feel like I had a handle on life. It seemed logical. If you know what's coming, you can react accordingly, right? But here's the thing, the more I planned, the more I realized that my so-called control was really just a series of self-imposed chains. I thought I was free, but I was bound tighter than ever by my need to predict and manage everything. Take a look at how we deal with our fears. We all have them, don't we? Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. What do we do with those fears? Well, most of us try to control them by overcompensating. We create rigid structures in our lives to minimize risk. We work harder, push ourselves further, plan more thoroughly, anything to keep the fear at bay. It's almost like we're trying to build a fortress around ourselves, a safe little bubble where nothing can go wrong. But in reality, we're just constructing a prison. And every time we put up another wall, we give away a little more of our freedom. It's a subtle trap, too. On the surface, everything seems fine. You're succeeding at work, relationships are stable, your health is good, everything's in order. But under that veneer of control, there's this undercurrent of anxiety. You're constantly on edge, because in the back of your mind, you know that any slip-up could throw everything off course. One unexpected event, and your whole life could unravel. But here's the rub, it's that exact fear of unpredictability that keeps you in chains. The irony? The more you try to control life, the less control you actually have. And then there's the self-talk. We all do it, telling ourselves we have to be in control, that it's the only way to survive. But let's be real, how much of that pressure is real, and how much is self-imposed? Our minds are the ultimate creators of this illusion of control. We convince ourselves that without rigid structure, everything would fall apart. But in reality, it's the rigid structure itself that's holding us back from experiencing life in all its messy glory. I remember reading somewhere that human beings are the only species that consciously create anxiety about the future. We're the only ones who look at tomorrow and think, if I don't get this right, everything's ruined. Animals don't have that kind of self-inflicted pressure. They live in the moment, reacting to what's in front of them, not worrying about what's ahead. Isn't that fascinating? We're the only species that actively sabotages our peace of mind by attempting to control things that are, quite simply, uncontrollable. I don't have all the answers, but I do know this: as long as we believe that we can control the chaos, we're stuck in the very trap we're trying to escape. The chains we don't see are the ones we've tied ourselves to with the idea that control equals safety. We live in a world that's constantly sending us messages about how we should live. It's in the ads, the media, the conversations at dinner parties, and the unspoken expectations of our families. From the moment we're born, society begins molding us, shaping our thoughts, our actions, our ambitions. It's a subtle thing, almost like a script we're handed, and we're expected to follow it without question. Be successful. Follow the rules. Fit in. Don't make waves. The problem is, this external pressure to conform doesn't feel like pressure at first. It feels normal. It's like a current that gently guides us, and we just go along with it. But once we get to a certain point, it becomes glaringly obvious that we've been swimming against our true desires all along. We've been striving for someone else's definition of success. The house, the car, the perfect Instagram life, it's all part of the script that society has written for us. And the worst part? We've bought into it. Take a moment and think about the societal standards that we all chase. Ever notice how they never really stop moving? The goalposts just keep shifting. One year, it's about getting the best job, the next, it's about creating a perfect family. It's a never-ending race. And if we're not careful, we find ourselves constantly trying to meet an ideal that was never ours to begin with. Society doesn't care about your true happiness. It cares about conformity. And the more we buy into the idea that we need to fit into a mold, the less freedom we have. We become like marionettes, dancing on strings pulled by forces outside ourselves. It's all an illusion of control. When you spend your life trying to meet expectations that don't align with who you are, you end up living in a prison of your own making. But what happens if you start questioning that script? What happens if you decide to step off the path that society has paved for you and carve your own? The answer is simple: you become a threat to the very system that thrives on conformity. People won't understand. You'll be labeled as non-traditional, irresponsible, or even unrealistic. Why? Because breaking free from societal expectations challenges the foundation of the system itself. It disrupts the neat little order that the world has worked so hard to create. Yet, here's where the paradox lies: the moment you begin to choose your own path, you begin to regain control, not over the world outside of you, but over how you respond to it. You realize that the external pressures aren't real threats, they're just projections of a world that thrives on creating an illusion of order. The truth is, the more you try to control what's outside, the more you lose touch with what's inside. At some point, you have to ask yourself, are you living the life you were meant to live, or the life others have designed for you? The question is jarring, isn't it? It's uncomfortable, and it may even provoke guilt. But in the end, it's the only question that matters. So, maybe it's time to look at these societal expectations as the external forces they truly are, forces that don't have to control us, that don't have to define us. We have the power to step outside of them, to acknowledge them, and then move on with our own vision of what life can be. It's not about rejecting society entirely, it's about realizing that you are not bound by its rules, unless you choose to be. There's something almost deceptive about the way our minds work. We're always under the impression that our thoughts are just us thinking, but the truth is, a lot of what we believe and how we respond to the world is shaped by unconscious forces we can't even see. It's almost as if we're carrying around a set of internal programming, handed down through years of experience, societal conditioning, and personal history. And while we might feel like we're making independent choices, much of what we do is actually a reaction to patterns we've never fully examined. Take this for example, we all have an idea of who we think we are, right? I'm a responsible person, I'm a perfectionist, I'm a hard worker. These beliefs about ourselves, our identities, shape how we respond to life's challenges. But here's the catch, a lot of these beliefs are not even ours to begin with. They're like scripts we've memorized, handed to us by society, parents, peers, and our own experiences. And over time, we forget that these beliefs aren't truths, they're just conditioning. Think about the voice in your head that tells you to be perfect. That voice is relentless, isn't it? It reminds you that if you mess up, everything will fall apart. It says that success is tied to how well you perform in every situation, and if you're not doing well, you're failing. That voice doesn't care about your well-being, it just wants you to be perfect, because that's what it believes is required to maintain control. But the truth is, perfection doesn't exist. It's an ideal we chase, but it's also a trap. And the moment we start to believe the lie that we have to be perfect, we surrender our control to an unattainable standard. Our minds, caught in this endless loop of striving and self-criticism, keep us trapped in a cycle of stress and anxiety. And we think that's normal. We tell ourselves, this is just how it is. Life is stressful. You have to push harder to control things. But that's not real control. That's submission to a system of thought that doesn't serve us. Here's an interesting fact, did you know that the average person has anywhere from 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day? That's a lot of thinking, right? The problem is, a huge chunk of those thoughts are repetitive, automatic, and negative. We're wired to think about what might go wrong, what we didn't do right, or what we need to fix. It's part of our survival instinct, our brain is constantly looking for danger, even when there's none. And the worst part is, these thoughts don't always reflect reality. They're just echoes of our internal programming, constantly reinforcing the idea that we need to control everything. Now, let's take it a step further. Have you ever noticed how much we overthink things? We'll ruminate for hours about a conversation we had, or worry about an event that hasn't even happened yet. It's as though our brains are addicted to the idea of having a plan for everything, as if that will somehow keep us safe. But what happens when that plan doesn't work out? What happens when the things we can't control throw a wrench in our perfect, neat little world? We feel lost, confused, and scared. And that fear, that uncertainty, is what makes us clutch even harder to our illusion of control. This battle in our minds isn't just about external circumstances, it's about how we interpret them. We can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond to it. And often, we don't even realize that we're choosing to interpret life in a way that reinforces our fears. We don't realize that our thoughts, in all their chaotic mess, are the true force behind our sense of control, or lack thereof. But the good news is this, once you start to become aware of these patterns, you can begin to change them. It's not easy, but it's possible. The key is realizing that the mind is a tool, not the master. We are not our thoughts. We are the ones who can observe, understand, and choose how to respond. The power doesn't lie in controlling the world outside us, it lies in controlling how we react to it. It's funny, isn't it? We spend so much time trying to control the uncontrollable outside world when the real shift happens when we start to look inward. When we start to question our own internal beliefs, the ones that keep us chained to fear and anxiety, that's when we begin to unlock true freedom. We all crave safety, don't we? It's almost instinctual. The desire to feel secure, to be free from danger, is hardwired into us. But here's the thing about safety, it's an illusion. Or at least, it's not as permanent or reliable as we like to think. We cling to it, wrap ourselves in it like a warm blanket, convinced that if we can just create the right conditions, we'll be safe from the world. We build routines, we create stable jobs, we find the right partner, and we think that's enough to keep the chaos at bay. But safety, in this sense, is just another form of control. And the more we chase it, the more we trap ourselves in an unending cycle of fear. It's an uncomfortable truth, I know, but the more we try to control our environment to maintain that sense of safety, the more we distance ourselves from real peace. The world doesn't care about our need for comfort or predictability. Life is unpredictable, and no amount of control can change that. And yet, we keep trying. We think if we just make the right choices, if we do everything perfectly, we can build a life that's secure. But all we're really doing is creating a bubble around ourselves, one that is fragile and easily burst. Think about it, the more you try to control things, the more stressed you become, right? That's because, deep down, you know that the sense of safety you're creating isn't real. You're walking on eggshells, always trying to maintain balance, terrified that any slight shift will cause everything to collapse. And then what happens when something unexpected does occur, an illness, a financial setback, a relationship breakdown? The illusion of safety shatters. The problem with safety is that it often stunts our growth. When we prioritize avoiding discomfort at all costs, we miss out on the opportunities that only come from stepping into the unknown. Growth, after all, requires risk. We can't grow if we're constantly cocooned in a perfectly controlled, predictable environment. True strength, true resilience, comes from our ability to weather the storms that life inevitably throws our way. And the more we try to shield ourselves from those storms, the less prepared we are to handle them when they inevitably come. The more we try to control our surroundings for the sake of safety, the more we start to feel trapped. It's almost like we're in a gilded cage. We have everything we thought we wanted: financial stability, a secure job, a perfect life, but it feels hollow. The safety we thought we built turns out to be a prison. The very thing we sought to protect ourselves has become the thing that limits us. And that's the irony of control: it promises safety but only delivers limitation. I've seen this in my own life. I used to be terrified of risk. I thought that if I just stayed on the predictable path, I'd be safe. But eventually, I realized that all I was doing was avoiding the very things that could bring me the most joy, the most fulfillment. I wasn't living, I was simply existing, walking through life in a bubble, terrified that any misstep would cause it to pop. But here's where things get interesting: once you let go of the illusion of safety, you begin to find a different kind of peace. It's not the peace of control or predictability, it's the peace of knowing that life is unpredictable, and that's okay. It's the peace that comes from realizing that, even in chaos, you are capable. You are strong enough to handle whatever comes your way. The more we embrace uncertainty, the less it terrifies us. We realize that true safety comes not from controlling everything, but from trusting ourselves to navigate whatever life throws at us. So, maybe it's time to question this obsession with safety. Maybe it's time to stop trying to create a life free of risk and start learning how to dance with the unknown. The more we let go of our need to control, the more we actually open ourselves up to the freedom and growth we've been seeking all along. Stability. It's one of those words that's often thrown around like a badge of honor. People talk about it as if it's the ultimate goal in life, the thing we should all strive for. We all want to feel like our feet are firmly planted on solid ground, that everything around us is secure and predictable. The problem is, stability, like so many other things, has a hidden cost. It's seductive at first, promising comfort and peace, but what it really brings is a life that feels, well, a little too safe. And that's where the problem starts. There's a subtle but profound truth about stability: it often comes at the expense of growth. Think about it. When everything in your life is stable, your job, your relationships, your routine, you start to feel like you have it all together. You start to think, I've figured it out. This is it. This is the dream. But then, over time, something starts to gnaw at you. You start to feel restless, as if something is missing. You've achieved this perfect, stable life, but now it feels hollow. You begin to wonder if you've settled, if maybe you're not really living, just existing within the parameters you've carefully constructed. It's like buying the perfect house, right? You spend months, even years, saving and planning for the house of your dreams. You get everything just right, the furniture, the paint colors, the landscaping. It's beautiful. But after a while, the excitement fades. It's no longer new, and the comfort it once provided begins to feel like a cage. That's the price of stability. It makes everything predictable, and in doing so, it dulls the excitement of the unknown. But stability doesn't necessarily lead to happiness. It's easy to think that the more stable we are, the more fulfilled we'll be, but that's a fallacy. Stability, in all its forms, often keeps us stuck. Think about your daily routine. How much of it is truly exciting? How much of it is just a series of actions designed to keep everything in place? When we build a life that's focused only on maintaining stability, we often miss the deeper joys that come with challenge, uncertainty, and even failure. When was the last time you did something truly unexpected? Something that took you out of your comfort zone and made you feel alive? For most of us, the answer is probably not recently. That's the danger of stability. It lulls us into a sense of complacency. We stop taking risks, we stop trying new things, and we start to believe that as long as everything stays the same, we're safe. But the truth is, life doesn't work that way. It's meant to be dynamic, unpredictable, messy. And without those moments of uncertainty, without the discomfort of pushing beyond our limits, we can't truly grow. There's an old saying, a ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. It's true. Ships aren't built to sit idly in a safe harbor, they're made to sail, to face the open sea, to navigate the unknown. And we're the same way. We're meant to live outside the boundaries of stability, to face challenges, to adapt, and to evolve. Stability might feel comfortable, but it's not where the magic happens. It's the risk, the change, the new experiences that push us to become who we're truly meant to be. The price of stability is, in essence, the price of stagnation. It's the cost of avoiding the discomfort of growth. And when we cling too tightly to stability, we inadvertently rob ourselves of the experiences that would truly enrich our lives. True fulfillment doesn't come from maintaining the status quo. It comes from embracing the unknown, from stepping into the chaos, and from trusting ourselves to handle whatever comes next. So, next time you find yourself yearning for stability, take a moment to ask yourself, what am I really seeking? Is it comfort, or is it growth? Stability may offer a sense of safety, but it's growth that offers the promise of a life well lived. It's time to let go of the illusion that stability equals happiness. Embrace the discomfort, and watch how your life transforms in ways you never imagined. Letting go. It's one of those concepts that sounds simple on paper, but when you try to actually do it, it feels terrifying. We talk about it all the time, just let go, don't worry, everything will be okay, release control, but no one really tells you how hard it is to actually do. Letting go doesn't mean becoming passive or abandoning all responsibility, it's not about giving up. It's about freeing yourself from the illusion that you have to control everything, and instead, allowing life to flow as it's meant to. The thing is, we're taught from a very young age to hold on tightly. Hold on to your dreams, your goals, your plans. Control your future. Control your circumstances. But no one ever mentions that holding on so tightly can be exhausting. We get so caught up in trying to control every little detail that we forget the most important part, we're not in charge of the bigger picture. Life has a way of unfolding in unexpected ways, and no amount of clinging to our plans can prevent that. I remember a time in my life when I was trying to control everything. Every decision was meticulously planned, every move calculated. It felt safe, like I was steering my life in exactly the right direction. But then came a moment, maybe it was a failed project, a relationship gone sour, or just a feeling of being stuck, that made me question everything. The more I tried to control, the more things seemed to slip through my fingers. It was as though life was telling me, you can't control everything, no matter how hard you try. That's when I started to realize something, the more I tried to hold on to control, the less free I felt. It's like trying to hold water in your hands, no matter how tightly you grasp it, it's still going to slip away. That's the illusion of control. And the moment I let go, I started to feel lighter, freer, like a weight had been lifted. Letting go didn't mean I stopped caring or became passive. It meant I stopped trying to force things to happen the way I thought they should. It meant I allowed life to happen, without the need to micromanage every outcome. Letting go is about trust. Trusting that the universe, or whatever you want to call it, will take care of things in its own time, in its own way. It's about trusting that you are capable of handling whatever comes your way, even if you can't predict it. And it's about trusting that, sometimes, the best things come from unexpected places, from moments of uncertainty and chaos. There's a fascinating thing that happens when you let go of control. You open up space for new opportunities, new experiences, and new ways of thinking. The moment you stop clinging to your plans, you make room for something bigger, something better. It's like cleaning out your closet. You have to get rid of the old, outdated stuff to make room for something fresh and exciting. I've learned that true freedom comes not from controlling everything, but from embracing uncertainty. It's the paradox of life: the more we try to control things, the less control we have. And the more we let go, the more control we actually regain, over our thoughts, our emotions, our reactions, and our ability to navigate life's twists and turns with grace. It's not an easy lesson. Letting go feels like giving up sometimes, but it's actually one of the most empowering things you can do. It's about surrendering the illusion of control and stepping into a space of real power, the power to respond, to adapt, to flow with life instead of fighting against it. And in that space, you find a freedom you never knew existed. So, if you're holding on to something, whether it's a situation, a relationship, or an idea of how life should be, take a moment to ask yourself, what would happen if you let go? What if you stopped fighting so hard to make things go your way? The answer might surprise you. The freedom you're seeking is already within you, waiting for you to release your grip and let life unfold as it was meant to. There's a certain power in surrendering, but it's not the kind of surrender that most people think about. It's not about giving up or waving a white flag in defeat. It's about letting go of your need to control every single aspect of your life and instead, allowing things to unfold naturally. The very idea of surrender feels foreign to us, almost uncomfortable. We've been taught that surrender equals weakness, that to give up control is to invite chaos into our lives. But what if surrender isn't a weakness at all? What if, instead, it's the key to real strength? It's taken me a long time to learn the true meaning of surrender. At first, I resisted the idea like most people do. I thought surrendering meant that I was giving up on my dreams, my goals, and my values. I thought that if I stopped trying to control every situation, I would lose my edge, my drive. But over time, I realized that the more I fought against life, the more exhausted I became. I was pushing, striving, and working harder, but I wasn't moving forward. I was simply burning myself out. And the harder I fought, the more frustrated I became when things didn't go according to plan. That's when I had a moment of clarity. The struggle wasn't the path forward. The struggle was the block. I had to learn to surrender, not because I wanted to give up, but because I realized that life has its own flow, and sometimes that flow is more powerful than my rigid plans. Surrendering doesn't mean you stop moving forward. It means you stop fighting the current. You stop resisting the natural rhythm of life and let yourself be carried along, even if you don't know exactly where it will take you. I remember the first time I truly surrendered. I was facing a big decision in my life, and all my instincts told me to try to control every outcome. But something inside me said, what if you let go of the need to have everything figured out? So, I did. I let go of my fears, my need for certainty, and my expectations. I just allowed things to unfold as they would. And what happened next completely shocked me. Without all the pressure and stress I'd been carrying, I found that the decision became clearer. The path forward opened up in a way that felt right, natural, and aligned with my true desires. It wasn't perfect, but it felt real. Surrendering isn't about passivity. It's not about lying down and waiting for life to happen to you. It's about allowing yourself to respond to life's twists and turns with openness and acceptance, rather than trying to control every outcome. It's a way of saying, I trust myself to handle whatever comes my way. And when you have that kind of trust in yourself, everything else becomes a little easier. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable, and instead, you learn to navigate life with grace and flow. There's an interesting paradox in surrender: the more we try to force things, the more we resist the flow of life. But the moment we let go, we suddenly become more aligned with the world around us. It's as if the universe, or life itself, steps in to guide us when we stop trying to micromanage every little detail. We don't lose our power by surrendering. In fact, we regain it in a much deeper, more sustainable way. It's like trying to push a boulder uphill. You'll get tired, frustrated, and defeated. But when you step back and let the boulder roll downhill, it moves effortlessly. Surrender is the release of unnecessary effort. It's trusting that the world has its own rhythm, and that you're part of it, not separate from it. It's also important to recognize that surrender isn't a one-time act. It's something we must do over and over again. Each time we face a challenge, each time we feel the urge to control, we have to remind ourselves to surrender. It's a practice, a continuous act of letting go. And every time we do, we get a little more comfortable with the uncertainty of life, a little more at peace with the idea that not everything can be controlled. The more we surrender, the more we find that we're actually in control of ourselves, and that's the only real control we need. If you're reading this and thinking, but what if I surrender and things don't work out? That's normal. It's natural to feel fear when faced with the unknown. But here's the secret: even when things don't go according to your plan, surrendering allows you to stay grounded. It gives you the strength to respond to life with resilience, instead of panic. And in doing so, you'll find that the path forward, while uncertain, is always the right one for you. So, next time you find yourself holding on tightly, gripping the reins of your life in an attempt to control everything, take a step back. Ask yourself, what would it look like if I just let go? What if I trusted that I don't have to have all the answers, and that life will guide me in ways I can't even imagine yet? You might just find that surrender isn't the loss of control, it's the beginning of true freedom. I didn't always trust myself. If I'm being honest, I used to second-guess everything. Every decision, every step forward, I'd replay it 100 different ways in my head, trying to predict the outcomes, preparing for disaster like some over-caffeinated chess master in a life-or-death match. Trusting myself? That felt like a luxury reserved for people who had it all together. You know, the ones who wake up at 5 a.m., drink green smoothies, and say things like, just follow your gut, with that suspiciously unbothered glow on their faces. But the truth is, trusting yourself isn't about having all the answers, it's about having the courage to listen to your inner voice, even when it whispers and the world around you is screaming. And yeah, it's scary. Because that voice doesn't always come with receipts or a detailed itinerary. Sometimes, it just tells you, this isn't right or this feels like the path. And the question becomes, are you willing to follow it even when the logic doesn't line up neatly? See, we're trained to outsource trust. We look to others for validation, to systems, gurus, algorithms. We're conditioned to believe that someone out there knows better than we do. And in doing so, we weaken that natural sense of inner alignment. But here's what I've learned: when you start to trust yourself, even just a little, things begin to shift. Your decisions feel lighter. Your anxiety loosens its grip. You stop feeling like you're navigating life with a blindfold on. This is where it gets juicy. Trusting yourself also means trusting the process. And that's where most of us panic. Because let's face it, the process is not always elegant. Sometimes it looks like failure. Sometimes it looks like confusion. Sometimes it looks like you wandering around in sweatpants, eating cereal for dinner, wondering if your life is going anywhere at all. But those moments? Those are part of it. Growth doesn't always wear a graduation cap and hold a bouquet of symbolic roses. Sometimes, it's messy and awkward and humbling. The thing about the process is that it's not linear. That's one of those things that people like to put on motivational posters but never really explain. It means that progress doesn't move in a straight line. You'll loop back. You'll stall. You'll jump forward, then fall on your face. And all of that is okay. Because in those detours, you learn. In those pauses, you heal. And in those stumbles, you build the kind of trust that doesn't rely on perfection, it relies on showing up, again and again. Human intelligence, at its core, isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being aware of patterns, emotions, gut instincts, and the subtle undercurrents beneath the surface. It's about reading not just the room, but yourself. And when you can do that, when you trust your inner signal more than the noise around you, you start to make decisions that are less about control and more about alignment. Odd fact of the day, there's a jellyfish that essentially never dies. Turritopsis dohrnii, also called the immortal jellyfish, reverts its cells back to a younger state when it's injured or aging. It doesn't resist the process, it literally trusts it so much, it cycles through it indefinitely. Now, I'm not saying you need to become a translucent sea creature to unlock inner peace, but there's something beautiful about the metaphor. This idea that regression, renewal, and starting over are all part of the same sacred dance. But let's be real, this kind of trust takes practice. It doesn't show up overnight like some Amazon Prime life skill. You build it slowly, decision by decision. It begins the moment you stop looking outside for approval and start asking yourself, what do I want? What feels true to me? And sometimes, your answer won't make sense to anyone else. But it doesn't have to. Academic debate still rages over the concept of self-agency, how much of our behavior is truly autonomous, and how much is the result of social structures, genetics, and subconscious wiring. The argument gets messy, but I think the beauty lies in the gray area. Even if we're influenced by external systems, we always have the power to make micro-adjustments. To pause. To choose again. And that's where trust lives, in those micro-moments where you stop outsourcing your power and start reclaiming it. You won't always get it right. You'll mess up. You'll question your path. You'll scream into pillows or the void or at your coffee when it's not strong enough. That's normal. That's human. But every time you choose to honor your intuition, even in the smallest of ways, you're building a relationship with yourself that can't be shaken by outside forces. So yeah, maybe trusting yourself is the most radical thing you can do. In a world that profits off your self-doubt, confidence is rebellion. And when you pair that trust with the willingness to let the process unfold, without needing to micromanage every twist and turn, you don't just survive. You begin to live. Uncertainty. That deliciously terrifying, unavoidable companion that shows up just when you think you've figured everything out. You know the feeling, it creeps in when plans fall through, when the future goes foggy, when you're standing on the edge of a big decision and you realize, you actually have no idea what you're doing. It's a moment that makes your stomach tighten, your thoughts swirl, and your confidence pack its things and quietly sneak out the back door. But here's the wild part, uncertainty isn't your enemy. It's not out to destroy your carefully curated Pinterest board life. It's the space where all possibility lives. Without uncertainty, you get the same thing over and over again. Comfort, yes. Predictability, sure. But also stagnation. You don't grow from knowing everything, you grow from learning how to keep moving when you don't. I had to learn that the hard way. There was a point in my life where I planned everything. My days were color-coded, my goals were listed in quarterly spreadsheets, and I had backup plans for my backup plans. It made me feel capable, until life hit me with a series of curveballs that not only obliterated my plans, but also revealed how much of my sense of identity was built on knowing what came next. That's when the real work started, not in rebuilding control, but in learning to live inside the unknown. Here's what they don't tell you, uncertainty is where the real magic happens. Creativity, innovation, reinvention, none of it is born from certainty. Those things thrive in the gaps, the gray areas, the "I have no idea what I'm doing" but I'm doing it anyway energy. It's where new paths are forged and old patterns are broken. It's where your edges get tested and your spirit stretches into places you didn't even know existed. There's a reason scientists talk about entropy, the natural tendency of systems to move toward disorder. Life, at a fundamental level, is meant to be unpredictable. It's not a glitch in the matrix, it is the matrix. When you stop trying to fight that and start leaning into the wild unknown, something amazing happens, you begin to adapt. You build muscles you didn't know you had. You grow more flexible, more present, and oddly enough, more grounded. It's like standing in the ocean. If you try to fight the waves, they knock you down harder. But if you learn to move with them, to float, to bend, to shift your balance, you realize you don't have to dominate the sea to survive it. You just have to stop resisting it. And maybe that's what we're being invited to do. To stop treating uncertainty like a virus we need to eradicate, and instead see it as the soil where all transformation begins. Because let's be honest, when you look back at your life, the most important moments probably weren't the ones where everything went according to plan. They were the ones where things fell apart, and you discovered something inside yourself you didn't know was there. Still, academic circles love to argue over whether humans are wired more for risk aversion or exploration. It's a hot debate. Some say we're biologically inclined to avoid the unknown, while others argue our adaptability is what makes us uniquely human. Personally, I think it's both. We fear uncertainty, but we also hunger for the thrill of what lies beyond the known. The trick is learning how to hold both truths without letting one paralyze us. So what do we do with this chaotic, unpredictable, beautifully unstable thing called life? We stop trying to control it. We stop trying to make everything make sense before we take the first step. And we start trusting that uncertainty isn't here to break us, it's here to shape us. Every time we say yes to not knowing, we give ourselves permission to grow beyond the versions of us that only existed inside the lines. The next time you're standing at the edge of a decision, heart pounding, mind racing, and that familiar voice starts whispering, you don't know what's going to happen, pause. Smile. And whisper back, exactly. Chaos is a word that tends to make people flinch. We're not wired to love it. Most of us, if we're honest, will do just about anything to avoid it, delay decisions, cling to toxic stability, even stay in a job or relationship we've outgrown just to avoid the messy unknown. Why? Because chaos is scary. It's wild, loud, untamed. It doesn't follow your schedule or ask for permission. It just shows up, knocks over your furniture, and says, let's see what you're really made of. But here's the twist, chaos isn't your enemy. Chaos is your mirror. It reflects back everything you've tried to hide beneath control, perfectionism, and tightly managed calendars. It shows you what you truly fear, loss, vulnerability, being seen. And if you're willing to stop running from it and look it square in the face, chaos becomes the most honest teacher you've ever had. I remember the first time my life really spiraled. The kind of spiral where you wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if you're even a person anymore, or just a bunch of conflicting to-do lists stapled together with anxiety. I lost my footing, career-wise, emotionally, spiritually. It was chaos in the purest sense. And my first instinct was to fix it. Control it. Organize the storm into neat bullet points and PowerPoint slides. But that didn't work. What did work? Letting myself fall. Not forever, just long enough to stop pretending I wasn't falling. I let the chaos in, and I listened to it. Beneath the noise, there was a message: this isn't a breakdown. This is a breakthrough. That's the thing no one tells you. Sometimes, the chaos isn't here to destroy you. It's here to crack open the stale, hardened parts of you so something real can grow. We're conditioned to associate chaos with danger. It's the villain in every movie. It's what we're taught to fear in school, in work, in relationships. Chaos equals failure, right? But what if we're wrong? What if chaos is just the necessary deconstruction before a deeper form of construction can begin? There's a phrase from complexity science, edge of chaos. It's the sweet spot where systems are neither too rigid nor too random, where the most innovation, creativity, and life emerge. Not in perfect order. Not in pure randomness. But right in the middle, where things are just chaotic enough to allow transformation. That's us. That's where we grow. Not in the silence of calm, but in the roar of everything shifting. There's ongoing academic debate about whether humans evolved in response to order or chaos. Some researchers say early humans needed stability, shelter, tools, routines. Others argue we adapted best when forced to respond to constant, unpredictable threats. I think both are true, and it's our ability to stretch between them that makes us who we are. We can thrive in stability, but we're forged in chaos. And the more you face chaos, really face it, without flinching, the more you start to trust yourself. You realize you're not as fragile as you thought. That storm you were so scared of. You walked through it. You're still here. You might be a little weathered, sure. But also stronger, clearer, more awake. We all carry a little chaos inside us. That voice that says, burn it down and start fresh. The part of you that wants to break free from what no longer fits, even if it means risking the unknown. Instead of burying that voice, what if you listen to it, not blindly, but curiously? What if, instead of asking how to avoid chaos, you asked how to dance with it? Because chaos doesn't mean you've lost control. It means something new is trying to emerge. It means the old structures no longer serve you. It means you're ready for something braver, bigger, more real. So the next time your world starts to shake, don't rush to glue it back together. Don't panic and try to make it neat again. Sit with the pieces. Get to know them. Trust that the fear you feel isn't a signal to retreat, it's an invitation to evolve. Let chaos in. Let it rearrange you. And watch who you become when the dust settles. I once read that the present moment is the only place anything actually happens, and I remember thinking, yeah, sure, that's cute, but I've got emails to answer. That's how far removed I was from the now. Like most people, I lived either in the regret-soaked past or the what-if-heavy future. The present? That was just the blurry space in between tasks. But here's the thing, the present moment is not just some philosophical concept or a buzzword on a mindfulness app. It's real. It's alive. And it's the only thing we ever truly have. I used to believe that presence was a luxury for monks and mountain yogis, not for regular people with calendars that scream in color-coded urgency. But the more life forced me to slow down, moments of loss, burnout, unexpected stillness, the more I started to realize that all the control I thought I had was smoke. Just beautifully organized chaos, wrapped in to-do lists. And when the noise stopped, there I was. Just, here. Let's be real, being present is weird at first. You'll sit there and suddenly realize how uncomfortable stillness is. Your brain, accustomed to a steady feed of dopamine and distraction, will start throwing tantrums. Check your phone, it whispers. Make a plan. Solve something. But if you stay, if you resist the urge to reach for something else, a door opens. It's quiet at first. Almost awkward. Then peaceful. Then kind of profound. You begin to notice things, how your breath feels, how sunlight warms one side of your face, how silence isn't empty, but full of awareness. Here's the wild part, all the freedom you've been looking for. It's right here. Not in 5 years, not after you get your life together, but in the space you're sitting in right now. The present moment doesn't care about your titles, your unfinished business, or your next big breakthrough. It just asks, are you here? And when you say yes, life softens. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're finally meeting reality on its own terms, instead of constantly arguing with it. That's some elite-level patience. And maybe there's something in that. A creature that has mastered the art of slow, intentional living, completely unbothered by our obsession with rushing. Maybe presence isn't about being calm all the time, maybe it's about embracing the pace that actually suits you. Human intelligence thrives on speed and logic, but it also blooms in stillness. Our deepest insights don't come when we're multitasking, they show up when we're quiet. That moment in the shower when a solution appears out of nowhere. That's presence. The quiet walk where an old pain suddenly makes sense. Presence. These aren't accidents, they're proof that clarity lives in the now, not in the next. There's still a lot of academic debate about time perception, how and why we experience time differently in different emotional states. Some argue that stress compresses time, while joy expands it. Others suggest our perception of time is more memory-based than reality-based. But everyone agrees on this: the present is where memory forms, decisions happen, and life is actually lived. When we cling to control, we remove ourselves from the now. We try to manipulate the future or rewrite the past. We hover in limbo, waiting for something to resolve before we give ourselves permission to feel okay. But life doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It's happening right now, whether you're paying attention or not. Being present doesn't mean ignoring problems or avoiding responsibility. It means anchoring yourself in the only space where change can happen. You can't change yesterday. You can't fully predict tomorrow. But right now, you can take a breath. You can choose how you show up. You can speak honestly. You can rest. And sometimes, presence just looks like being okay with not knowing. With letting the questions be questions. With allowing life to be unfinished. Because the truth is, it's always going to be unfinished. There will always be more to figure out, more to do, more uncertainty on the horizon. But in this moment, none of that matters. In this moment, you are enough. Not when you fix it. Not when you achieve more. Now. So the next time you catch yourself spinning out, replaying old mistakes, stressing about future disasters that may never come, pause. Put your hand on your chest. Feel your breath. Look around. Name 5 things you can see. This isn't spiritual fluff. It's a survival skill. Because the only place you have power, peace, and presence, is right here. At some point, it hits you, you've been living the same loop over and over again. Different jobs, different cities, different partners maybe, but underneath it all, it's the same story. The same need to control, the same anxieties dressed in different clothes, the same mental checklist: is this safe? Will this work? Can I plan around it? Control, disguised as responsibility, ambition, even love. And here's the plot twist: nothing outside has to change for that cycle to break. It all starts with one choice: to stop playing the same script. Breaking the cycle of control isn't a grand act of rebellion. It's not smashing your phone or quitting your job to live in the woods, though, hey, if that's your truth, go full Thoreau. No, the real shift is quiet. Subtle. It begins in the smallest of moments, when you choose to pause instead of react, when you choose to respond instead of control. When you say, maybe I don't need to fix this right now, or even, maybe this doesn't need fixing. One of the first practical steps. Awareness. You can't change a cycle you don't see. Most of our controlling behaviors are on autopilot. We schedule every minute, overthink every interaction, second-guess every decision, and then wonder why we feel exhausted and disconnected. But when you begin to notice those patterns, it's like turning on the lights in a room you didn't know you were sitting in. You see the way your anxiety masks itself as productivity. You catch the way you micromanage conversations so no one gets upset. You recognize the way you say, "I'm just being careful," when what you really mean is, "I'm afraid." And that's the key. Fear. Control is almost always fear in disguise. Fear of being misunderstood, of getting hurt, of failing, of being vulnerable. And I get it, fear is real. But when fear becomes the driver of every decision, it shrinks your world. It creates a tight, controlled little space where you feel safe, but not alive. Human intelligence, in its most evolved form, isn't about dominating our environment, it's about adapting to it. It's about knowing when to act and when to surrender. The smarter we become emotionally and mentally, the more we learn that control is a brittle strategy for a fluid world. Adaptability is strength. Presence is strength. Humility is strength. And yet, some academic theories still argue that humans evolved precisely because of our need for control, over fire, food, shelter, and one another. But now, that same instinct to dominate can backfire. In a hyper-connected, fast-changing world, over-control leads to burnout, broken relationships, and disconnection from self. The new frontier of intelligence isn't about how much we control, but how much we can let go. So how do we start dismantling the cycle? Slowly. Gently. Intentionally. Here are 3 tiny rebellions that change everything. 1. Say no without an explanation. Not rudely, just honestly. Watch how hard that is at first. Notice the urge to justify, to soften, to control how you're perceived. Then breathe through it. 2. Leave a plan unfinished. Just once. Let part of your day be unscheduled. Watch what rises up, the itch to fill the gap, the discomfort of free time. Sit in it. Let the silence teach you something. 3. Let someone else be right. Even if you know they're wrong. Smile. Nod. Release the need to fix their opinion. Feel the freedom of not having to convince anyone of anything. None of these things will feel easy at first. But they are acts of revolution, subtle ones. Each time you interrupt the old control pattern, even for a breath, you carve out a new neural pathway. You're literally rewiring your brain for presence, peace, and trust. You don't need to fix yourself. You're not broken. The version of you that clung to control did so out of love, out of survival. Thank them. Honor them. But don't let them run the show anymore. The person you are becoming, the one who breathes deeper, who trusts more, who lives fuller, needs space to grow. And growth doesn't happen in a cage. So take one small step today. Just one. Not because you've mastered this journey, but because you're ready to live something different. The cycle breaks when you do. Freedom is sneaky. It doesn't always arrive with fireworks or a dramatic declaration. Sometimes it tiptoes in quietly, disguised as a small choice, a deep breath before responding, an honest, "I don't know," or refusal to explain yourself when your heart already knows the truth. But the moment it lands, something shifts. And what's wild is that it never stays confined to just you. The freedom you claim for yourself ripples outward, like rings on water, touching everyone around you. I didn't fully grasp that until I noticed how my relationships started to change. When I stopped trying to control how people saw me, they relaxed. When I stopped micromanaging conversations to avoid discomfort, deeper truths came out. And when I let go of the need to be the strong one all the time, others began to open up in ways I hadn't seen before. It's like the unspoken rule changed, from "let's all pretend we're fine" to "let's just be real." And real is where connection lives. There's something incredibly contagious about someone who's comfortable with not knowing. Someone who isn't racing to solve everything, or to be the most impressive person in the room. You feel it. There's space around them. A kind of quiet confidence that says, "You don't have to perform here." That's the ripple effect of inner freedom. You're not just changing your own experience, you're rewriting the energy of the rooms you walk into. But make no mistake, not everyone will celebrate your freedom. Some people will feel threatened by it. Especially if your liberation highlights their own entrapment. When you stop apologizing for who you are, you might notice who benefits from your self-doubt. When you stop participating in guilt-driven obligations, you'll see who relied on your silence. And when you say, "I love you, but I won't shrink for you," some will walk away. Let them. Your freedom isn't rude, it's just honest. And not everyone is ready for that kind of honesty. Human intelligence, especially emotional intelligence, includes the ability to create safety, not just for ourselves, but for others. Not safety in the wrap it in bubble wrap kind of way. I'm talking about emotional safety. The kind that lets people be messy. That says, you don't need to be fixed to be loved. And when you embody that, when you let go of control and show up authentically, you give people around you unspoken permission to do the same. And this isn't just a feel-good concept. Studies continue to explore what psychologists call emotional contagion, how our moods, our mindsets, our nervous system states literally affect others on a physiological level. It's why a calm person can settle a room, and why anxiety feels like it spreads through the air. When you step out of the cycle of control and into inner peace, you're not just helping yourself. You're contributing to a much larger energetic shift. You start to notice it in small ways. The friend who starts setting boundaries because they watched you do it first. The colleague who speaks up for the first time in a meeting after you stopped apologizing for your ideas. The sibling who says, "I didn't know we were allowed to do that," after you made a choice that honored your own joy. Freedom isn't loud, but it echoes. Quietly. Powerfully. And the thing is, the more you live from this place, the less tolerance you have for anything that pulls you away from it. You start to feel it immediately when you're reverting, when you're slipping back into old control patterns, or saying yes when you mean no, or shrinking to keep the peace. And because you've tasted something better, you course correct faster. Not perfectly, but consistently. You begin to realize that your peace is not up for negotiation. That your presence is not a performance. That your path doesn't need to be understood to be valid. And when you live like that, something beautiful happens. People trust you. Not because you have the answers, but because you don't pretend to. And that honesty, that's magnetic. So, no, it's not selfish to focus on your own freedom. It's sacred. Because the world doesn't need more people pretending they're fine. It needs more people who are willing to be free, in their choices, in their relationships, in how they speak and love and rest. It needs people who know how to listen to themselves, even when the world tells them not to. You don't have to shout your freedom from the rooftops. Just live it. Quietly. Boldly. Let it ripple.